Welcome back to Little Wars TV. I'm Greg. I am joined here in the War Room by Tom, and today we are doing a review of the game Fire at Sea. Specifically, we're looking at a module of the rules Fire at Sea called Battle of the Denmark Straits.
Right.
But the Battle of the Denmark Straits is just one scenario of many. But the interesting thing about the way this is presented is that you get the rules for the game in this module.
Right.
So this was written by Mark Fastoso in 2020, and as the title suggests, it allows you to play the Battle of the Denmark Straits. So the Hood versus the Bismarck, that kind of classic matchup.
Right. No, it's actually I had the opportunity to play it with you and a few others during COVID when everybody was playing online.
Right.
And Mark ran a couple games remotely, and it was perfect for that. As you'll see when we talk about kind of the scale of the game and how it works, it really was one that I thought worked very well for that. And so that was my first introduction. But yeah, the scenarios are very well developed, and the rules I think fit right in there.
Yeah, so before we get into our 5 categories, which we'll put on the screen right now, we're going to go through these for the game. I think it's important to note something we're going to keep coming back to again and again in this review. The game is free. You can get this PDF for free from fireballforward.com, which is Mark's website. So with that said, let's launch right into it. And Tom, what are your thoughts on the presentation of the game?
Well, the presentation, keeping in mind it's free. I mean, it's formatted, it's colorful, it's organized.
It's free. Did you mention it's free?
It's free.
Right. So how hard can we really grade it?
Yeah, it's. I mean, look, the presentation it's clear. The rules are laid out. It's clear, easy to understand, and it's 4 pages.
Yeah,
roughly.
Yeah, the entire PDF that you get is 13 pages.
Okay.
But that includes introductory material. It actually includes like paper chits, literally everything you need to play the game. The rules themselves, you're right, just 4 pages.
Right. So presentation, I'm fine with. I gave it a 7.
Okay. Yeah, that's fair. I gave it an 8. Bumped it up maybe 1 or 2 because it's free.
Right.
But I will say it's very concisely written, which I appreciate. And,
Absolutely.
And in 4 pages, it's got to be. So great for beginners. My only complaint, if you can have a complaint about a free game, is that the captain cards at the end, and we're going to talk about those later, they're a little bit plain looking. I thought
Sure.
artistically, those could have been a little more interesting.
Yeah, room for improvement there.
Little room for improvement. All right, our second category is playability. This is 30% of the score, and here we're looking at how easy is it to get into the game, what do you need, how easy is it to teach new players, and how fast is it to resolve. And here, honestly, I don't know if it gets a lot easier than Fire at Sea. And this is designed to be a beginner game.
That's right. No, it really is. Playability, if you're measuring it, how quickly could I get this on the table and get some friends playing it?
5 minutes?
5 minutes, yeah. I mean, because really the table, the board is small. You get the ship markers. If you don't already have ships, many people will have ships already.
Right.
So really, this is one you can easily get playing on the table. I gave it a 10. I don't know how you beat, ease of playability here.
Yeah, I gave it a 9. I'm looking at my notes, and I don't know why I didn't. I don't know why I didn't.
We're always afraid to give it a 10.
Right,
Some people are.
Don't know why I didn't give it a 10, but I gave it a 9. Things that I would say about playability, the big one to bring up is that you mentioned the table. So you can play this on any table size you want, but the table is divided into grids.
Right.
It is a grid-based movement and shooting game. 6-inch grids are suggested. I'm usually not a big fan of grids in my games, but here, because it's a beginner game, it really does simplify.
If it's for a naval game, yeah,
Right.
Which movement is often the overwhelming, because nobody feels like they're an admiral, right?
Right.
So the grids really do get people into a naval game faster than I've
easy.
seen anything.
Yeah, I mean, it does make it very simple. It also makes shooting very simple. How far away is that guy? You don't need a tape measure in this game. You literally just count the grids. So even though that's not something I do typically like in a game, here I understand why it exists, and it works it works pretty well.
Yeah, so that would probably be the slowest thing, is to lay out a cloth with some grids on it, or to mark off grids on a table.
Yeah, you will have to find a way to do that, but
Yeah,
you could just
that's
use
easy.
little beads,
Right.
tokens, if you don't have a gridded cloth at home. Not a big deal. Looking at my notes, now I remember why I didn't give it a 10.
Okay.
So the one thing that I wasn't crazy about in the game, and we're going to talk about this in the mechanics section next, is that you can get a lot of table clutter in this game. You need a deck of standard poker cards, a 52-card deck. And you're going to lay those out for both activation and for shooting. So you're looking at damage results with that deck, and what happens for some of these big capital ships, like the Bismarck, has like 30 hull points.
Right.
During the course of the game, you could have like 5 or 6 different cards following your ship across the table because you got to stack those out to see them. So it can look a little bit cluttered.
You could probably, obviously there's other ways of dealing with that to record damage on the ships that you don't have to do on the table, but yeah, I agree. In the bigger battles, you do get a lot of that. When we think about mechanics, we're looking for, one, we're looking for any novelty, right? So is there anything unique to this system that is both, kind of essential to it and also distinguishes it from other systems? So here, when I'm thinking of the mechanics here, grids are used in a variety of things. We've used them in, World War II games and so forth. The movement is fairly straightforward. So, I don't know that there's cards for damage, cards for, there's nothing really unique there. But in terms of overall mechanics, to me, the thing is you're taking what are usually some of the most complicated games in terms of naval warfare, if you want to do it right, and get the essence of a battle, and boiling it down in a way. So I'd like to reward the mechanics of, the way they fit together in the whole system, I think is pretty smooth.
It's only 4 pages, so you definitely have to boil it down. And I want to read off the turn sequence here, because this is how every turn goes. In this particular one, which is the Battle of Denmark Strait, the British player always moves first. So you start with movement. The British player is going to move his ships. The German player then will move their ships. And, because it's a grid game, you move grid to grid. Pretty simple. But in order to make a move, you have to roll 2d6 and score your movement or higher. So, for example, the Bismarck has a movement of 5. That's the move rating. So that means I've got to roll 2d6 and I need a 5 or more just for the right to move. If you fail, you're allowed to turn in space. You can rotate in your grid, but you're not allowed to move out of it.
Right.
So movement, very clean, very simple. Then when we go to shooting, your ships also have a shooting score, and it's the exact same mechanic. You roll 2d6, you got to get your score or higher to hit, but the nice little wrinkle here is that it's 1 harder to hit for every space the enemy ship is away. So if the guy's right next to you, it's just your shoot score or higher, but if he's 4 spaces away,
very hard.
You've got to roll your shoot score +4, which is a very simple way to resolve what you had mentioned is in some other games of very complicated combat. Here, you resolve your shots in seconds. And after you've done that roll, if you got a hit, as we mentioned earlier, that's where the 52 card deck comes in. You're just going to pull one of those cards off the deck, and right here in the rules, he's got a very nice chart that shows you what the possible damage results are.
Right.
The face cards can have different special effects. You could get a critical hit. In the historical Battle of the Denmark Strait, famously, the Hood takes a magazine hit and just splits the ship right in half. Magazine hit is a possibility here as one of the damage results.
That's right. You bring out the big dice for that, right?
That's right. We like to, yeah.
Yeah, so on also when you're shooting, so even if you miss that shot, you can get a splash marker.
That's right.
On the targeted ship, which will improve your chances for the next shot you take at it. So I think you can get up to 2 of those. So yeah, I mean that whole thing about using the grid for the ranges, which are often the most time-consuming part of a naval battle in terms of how weapons perform over different ranges. It's resolved very quickly, but while recognizing the fact that if you're more than 3 or 4 squares away,
it's going to be tough.
Yeah, it's going to be tough. So I think you started. I think you got into the movement as well.
Right.
And the nice thing about the movement is, so you can, if you don't manage to roll to succeed to move, you still can reorient yourself, which can be important for shooting, right? Whether you get a broadside.
Right.
And then there's a chance, which we'll get into here, of if you have the opportunity to spend captain's points.
Yes,
right?
we mentioned the captain cards earlier.
Yeah, that's where that's a chance for you to improve your movement, because you're usually deciding whether to change your orientation or to move one square.
That's right.
And with a superior captain card, or just using the points, I guess, somebody who has enough points, you can now move a little bit better, which to me is just, you're better at getting those shots and moving around the board. But again, it's not drastic, and it's fairly expensive to do that.
Yeah, so we'll put a shot on the screen to show you what the captain cards look like. And these are all historical, World War II personalities that would have been present at the battle or in the fleet. And the captain has 2 ratings. He has captain points, which Tom just mentioned, and he also has a morale score. So at the end of each turn, there is a morale and a damage control phase, and if your ship took damage, you'll have to roll to see whether your ship disengages or not. And that's where the morale becomes very important. And once again here, the mechanic is exactly the same as in moving and shooting, which I like. There's a sort of consistency across the board. You're going to roll 2d6, and you have to get your captain's morale or higher to stay in the fight. But the interesting part of the game, so when we first started talking about mechanics, you said that there wasn't anything terribly innovative or new about Fire at Sea.
Did I forget something?
Well, I agree with you, except the one interesting wrinkle that I like in this game is the introduction of the captain points.
Yes.
With these cards, various captains might have, 2, 3, or 4 points, and you can spend those points to enhance your ship at different times during the turn. And you get them every turn. Every turn you can spend those captain points to help you move or shoot, or maybe you want to reserve those points to help with your morale roll at the end of the game, because those are very, very critical.
Right.
So I like...
How about repair?
Oh yeah, they can help with damage repair too.
Damage repair.
Like if you took a rudder hit, you could potentially, or a gunnery hit. Yeah. Maybe you could repair that. So I like the idea here in this game that there is a very simple way to introduce a little bit of resource management.
Yes.
There's lots of things to spend the captain points on, but you only have a couple of them. So in terms of tactical decision making, I thought that was a nice introduction. That I can't think of a easy naval game that I've played before where they had something quite baked in like that.
That's true. The captains are usually abstracted out. It's the usual naval performance level, right? U.S. versus Japan, but no, this is a really nice touch.
And they have personality traits as well. If you look at the cards, each captain might have one good or bad trait that affects him during the game. And in a game where you only have a couple of ships per side, it's kind of nice to see the captain in there.
Yep.
So all that being said, what were your sort of final thoughts on the mechanics of the game, and what kind of score did you give it?
Well, so even though I introed by saying each isn't particularly unique, I think it all fits together in such a nice way that I gave it 8 for the mechanics, because I think it's always important, that the flow of the game is one that you're never going to spend an inordinate amount of time on any of these steps, and it keeps the whole game flowing, which I think is always important for mechanics.
Yeah, I had a really hard time scoring this category in particular. This was the toughest one for me because it is a 4-page game, so there's not a whole lot going on here. That's just the nature of the game. It's just very short and simple, resolves in 20 to 30 minutes. So it was hard for me to give it too high of a score because there's not a lot that happens in the game. But at the same time, it's supposed to be a 20-minute game, so how do you score it? I ended up giving it a somewhat low score. I gave it a 6.
Okay.
I didn't think there was anything, terribly shocking or innovative about it. But again, this was a tough category. Speaking of tough categories, the next one is historical flavor, and the question is, how much historical flavor can you get in a 4-page set of rules? And the answer, surprisingly to me, is quite a bit. I actually think Fire at Sea does a really nice job for a 4-page set of rules.
Right. Yeah, no, it's a tough one, but I think it clearly, when you're playing it, you're placed in that particular set of years when, World War II naval operations. You add in the captain's cards, and it really starts to pull out some of the flavor. You look at your ship, I think the different ships are rated nicely against each other, so that, when
right.
you're commanding the hood, it's clear you understand why the hood is the hood.
Right.
Right. So it's really easy to get into it. So for a simple game, fairly simple mechanics, it has enough of history to it, and the history for each of the scenarios we've done is tight, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think it works pretty well for it.
Yeah, I look, if I'm going to have a complaint here on a 4-page set of rules, it's that the ships are fairly generic.
Mm-hmm.
You only have a couple of stats for each ship, so you have one shooting value for the entire ship. So if you're looking for a game where you're going to get to see the difference between your main batteries, your secondary batteries, and on some of these big ships like the Hood, tertiary batteries, none of that is in this game.
Right.
And I have mixed feelings about that. On the one hand, it is supposed to be a simple game, so I know why the designer boiled it all down to kind of one shoot score. On the other hand, you might only be commanding one ship.
Mm-hmm.
So you kind of want to see a little bit more character to the ship than just a single shoot value. So once again, I find like I'm in a tough spot here. The game is short. It's only 4 pages. There's only so much you can do in 4 pages. I ended up giving it a 7. I think it does a nice job for a 4-page set of rules. I might have liked to see just one more value in there to help kind of separate out some of the big capital ships from the smaller cruisers.
Yeah, no, I get that. To me, they stood out on the table well enough, and I don't know that if I were thinking of history, if I'd go the direction of the ship as much as, I think the captains are right touch.
Yeah, that's nice.
But I also, just when we were doing this particular scenario, there's fog.
Mm-hmm.
There's, to me, it felt, as ease of experiencing for 2 hours that little bit of history. I was like, man, this delivers without a lot of complication. I wasn't exhausted by the end of it, which is often the case.
It is. Yeah, it is. Yeah.
But so I think I gave it an 8.
Okay.
I think it manages to transport you for those few hours you might be playing that, even if you get 2 hours, to just say, look, I walked away from it and I was in the Denmark Strait, right?
Yeah.
So.
All right, our final category is support. This is only worth 10% of the score, but, it's an important category. So here we're looking at, when you go online, what other resources are you going to find that surround this game? And Fire at Sea is a new game. Mark just sort of finished writing it last year in 2020. But he has a website, fireballforward.com, because Mark has another set of World War II rules called Fireball Forward, and he's hosting all of the Fire at Sea content on there. So you can go on that website, you can get a free copy of this game, Battle of the Denmark Strait. But Mark also has other scenarios that are available, and I believe that they're all kind of packaged into a single PDF for $15.
Okay, that's pretty good.
Yeah, that's all the battles of the Kriegsmarine. So you're going to get all the Murmansk convoy operations, River Plate. I mean, you're going to get all kinds of neat stuff. Plus, you had mentioned earlier in this review the linking of multiple little
for the campaign
for the Bismarck.
Right.
What you get for free is just the Battle of the Denmark Strait, the historical battle. But on Mark's website, one of the scenarios that you get in that PDF for $15 is the 3-part mini campaign that Tom mentioned. And because each step in the mini campaign is so quick, I mean, like 20, 30 minutes apiece, you get to play the entire campaign in 2 hours.
Right.
That's a really fun game. The players kind of get to make choices between each one. We had fun with that.
That was a lot of fun.
The Bismarck did not make it in our mini campaign, but actually came damn close. Came really close.
Yeah, no, well, so I have no doubt the support, what you just mentioned is a great level of support. I mean, all these campaigns and the scenarios, are well researched and put together. So, I think the support, given what I know of Mark and his work,
Yeah, he's very active.
Yeah, so that I gave it a 7.
Okay.
But I have no doubt that it's well worth it to get into this, and either developing your own scenarios after you see how it's done.
Yeah.
But many
easy.
of them will obviously already be done for you, I think, by the time the website is up.
Yeah, Mark, I know right now is working on some Pacific scenarios as well, which would be a lot
Coral
of fun.
Sea, something
Yeah,
like that.
yeah, I know he really wants to do something for that. So, yeah, the only thing that you're not going to find is some kind of large forum or player base, and that's because it's a brand new set of rules.
Yeah.
So I don't know how critical I can be of that. So I ended up giving it an 8. I think the support is excellent, and again, worth mentioning, it's free.
It's free.
Yeah, it's a free game. So how critical are you going to be of a free game that you can go download right now for nothing? Yeah. All right, so now we get down to our final review, and this is where we're going to kind of tally up our scores and give any final thoughts on Fire at Sea, Battle of the Denmark Strait.
I just did.
Oh, well then we don't need to do the final review. We're done here. Thanks so much for watching Little Wars TV. Tom, what did your scores add up to when we do the weighted system?
Well, in our very complicated weighted system, I came up with an 84, which I think is a very good score.
That, for us, that's a really high score. Anything over 80 is we consider best in class.
Right.
So that is really good. Mine came out to a 75, which is something that we would highly recommend. And I absolutely would highly recommend.
How could you not?
How could you not? Because normally when we get to our final review, we talk about the price and what you have to pay for the game and whether we think there's a good value there. But the price being $0, it's like, why wouldn't I go and download a free game that works really well that I can play in 30 minutes?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, nothing but good things to say about Fire at Sea from Tom and I. Thank you so much to Mark and his club down in Virginia, those guys, for playtesting and putting this together. It is awesome to see other wargamers putting out free content. You know, just a couple of months ago, we released our Raven Feast game as a gateway game for new players. And I think that Fire at Sea is a fantastic gateway game for new players. You need a couple of ships, which you could even build yourself, or you could buy them. Right. I think Mark got his from Panzerschief, a couple $1 a ship. So I mean, if you're thinking about getting into historical wargaming, but you don't want to spend a ton of money, you just kind of want to try it out. This is a great way to try it out.
Absolutely, and for a naval game, this is really one that for people it might be very hard to get into naval gaming.
Yeah.
Your kids maybe.
Yeah.
This is a perfect starter.